Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. We've got Scott, Shane, and myself, Paris, in the house. Super excited to be with you guys today and share some ideas. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the economy, share a little bit about our thoughts and feelings about gold. We actually had scheduled a different topic today, but some things fell through. We're not sure what's happening, but we're here for you, and we're going to make something up. Good.
Just like the unknown of the daily life we live, our guest went MIA today.
Yes, so we're prepared to do something different, to pivot and do something different. First thing we want to share with you guys is that you definitely will, after listening to today's discussion, you're going to want to hit up a couple of websites for sure, and or links in the description below. First one is that with everything going on in the economy, it's super important to make sure as the dollar collapses, as the value of the dollar declines, you're going to want to have gold and silver in your portfolio. Whether your portfolio is Shane level of 100%, or if it's a Paris level of around 20%, or you're definitely going to want to have some in your portfolio. So hit up learn.itmtrading.com/Prepper Talk. Or call 1-866-257-0481 for a free consultation. There's no obligation to buy. There's no obligation to do anything, but call and get some good education on gold and silver. Another site you could go to, and we were going to talk a little bit about Goldbacks today, is alpinegold.com/Prepper Talk. We have some mixed emotions and feelings about gold and Goldbacks and things like that. It's good to have a good diversity in your portfolio. I recommend getting some Goldbacks just to have them, but that's kind of a last resort.
Or trying to use that as currency every day. I mean, that's really where I think Goldbacks fit in, right?
Here's the thing: before you start buying all that stuff, get educated and make sure that you've got a healthy surplus of lead. And then
that precious metal
of food storage, right? You've prioritize your things. If you're at the point where you've got your food storage knocked out, your water sources figured out, and you've got your self-defense, your personal protection, your lead
gear,
right? Then you can start going nuts with your gold and silver and everything else, right? Exactly. I'm not as diversified as you guys are. You know, I've got a lot of lead, I've got a little bit of silver, and then I've got some other stuff. But I've got a lot of other bases covered, and I think that's the thing. Like, as we're getting into the next few months, like, so many of you guys out there listening don't have the basics of the bases covered.
And for me, the way I approached it was, it's not like I went out and got all my food storage and got my water ready, and then I started with silver. No, it was a little bit of everything all at once, right? A little bit of everything here and there, because it was more fun that way. Honestly, it was less boring to say, I got to spend all this money on food storage, right? No, I did a little bit here and a little bit there. That time may be past at this point, right? So definitely prioritize water, food, shelter, obviously, personal protection, and then real money. But the thing that I've been noticing lately in really everywhere is now all the pundits, all the commentators they're finally saying, oh, look, we might be actually headed into a recession. Before, it was the last forecast, I think, for the Fed was saying we don't see any recession ahead. Look at my nice green glow. Look at that. I'm gonna glow. I don't know. It's just weird.
It's been that meme until now. It's been that meme, like the whole building's on fire, everything's on fire, and the guy's like, "It's fine, everything's fine, it's fine." Like,
exactly. That's been our government's their stance and the Fed stance. Oh, everything's fine, and we'll be able to get inflation back down to 2%. Now it seems like that is all switched. It's changed. So what I'm seeing a lot is that we not be in for more than just recession. This might be a depression. I'm hearing a lot of that lately from the big names, the big companies, the hedge funds, and so that I think it's becoming a lot more real now. I mean, I think all of us have really realized we've been in recession since March of 22, when we officially entered a recession, not what the government says. No, we're going to change the definition of recession, right? But no, we've really been in recession for a long time. But because of printing, it hasn't been as noticeable, or as they're just not admitting.
Another thing that a lot of people have been looking forward to, or looking for, is the collapse of the market. And it was hidden. Actually, it already kind of happened, if you think about it, because with inflation the way it is, the stock market was kind of maintained. Well, when you lose value in your dollar, your stock actually loses value as well. If the value of the stock is tied to the dollar and the dollar loses value, your stock literally lost value as well, but it was hidden because the stock stayed the same, but the value of the dollar depreciated. And so the stock market crash actually kind of happened hidden in that inflationary rise of and what happened with the dollar. So, I mean, think about the 20% or something like that was kind of the inflation over the last little while.
Yeah.
So what would happen if the stock market crashed 20%? That's the crash people are looking for. And that it actually happened hidden in inflation.
And another aspect of that is, everybody sees how strong the dollar is compared to other currencies. Like the Dixie is like over 104 right now, which has been going up. It had touched, lower 100s in the last couple months, and it was on a bit of a tear, since the Fed had raised interest rates, and so it's the cleanest dirty shirt in the hamper, right? Dirty hamper, right? So for yield, that's where everybody's going. Which countries are going? They're still going to the dollar because there's so many dollars out there. There's so much dollar debt that has to be paid off in dollars. So dollars are in demand, and so the desire for dollars goes up, and the return on dollars goes up, even though it's still losing, like you say, a ton of purchasing value in inflation. And another aspect of that is you think about what gold has also done during the same amount of time. Gold has stayed really steady. It's dipped under 1900 a few times in the past, 6 months or so, maybe a year, but with the sharp rise in the dollar, gold has not gone down. It is held strong. Just imagine if the dollar had done what it should do, which should be going down into the 80s, gold would be a rocket ship right now. Yeah. But because of all these factors, the manipulation, very difficult to explain, but you have to get a big macro picture of what's going on with geopolitics and with the Fed, with all these central banks and such, and to really kind of just begin to comprehend what's going on. But I'm hearing more and more, in addition to all these whisperings about about recession and such, is that, man, gold this, gold that. It's becoming a bigger topic. Although we're not seeing a lot of investors or hedge funds jump into that just yet, but just a matter of time.
What's funny is like I look at the economy this way. It could stumble and fall as easily as Biden does. And that's happening.
It's being propped up too.
Yeah. Inflation, like I like to look at the inflation as one of the biggest key indicators of what's going on economically, because people complain about the interest rates and like, oh man, they're so high. And I'm like, really, they're not that bad. If you look back historically, we're about where we were in 1993. Now, here's the crazy thing. Look at how expensive the median home was then. The interest rate wasn't too bad, but a $200,000 average median home value across the United States at 7% is still livable. However, we're now the median home value for a single family is $620,000.
Isn't that much, or is it find mid-4s?
Well, it's
maybe for Utah.
Like last month, but here in Utah, it's actually 720.
Wow.
That's the crazy thing. No one's building, and I was out in Eagle Mountain the last couple of weeks, and what's crazy is that's a newer development, lots of development, and they've got some homes starting in the middle 4s.
Yeah, that's your starter home, right?
Right, but they're huge.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I come in town, and I'm like, I can't find anything for more than 1,800 square feet in the greater Salt Lake area in Davis County that's not part of either a condo or a townhome, right? And those are starting in the high 380s.
Wow.
So they're all, you can't just, a standalone home it's disappearing. The average
apartment. I have some apartment homes up by my house here. These are like townhome apartments, they're like 3 stories or whatever it is. It says starting in the high. The ad actually says starting in the high 200s. So it has 200 there, but then it's like 299 or something like that.
299 for the 1,100 one. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just becoming impossible for people to have their own place unless they jump out and go to like Kansas or somewhere in the Midwest where you can buy 10 acres,
Arkansas,
with a house on it for 170, and then make it defensible. But like most places are losing the ability to find your own home. right? And even a lot of the homes that I'm seeing now that are being built, a lot of them are intended to be multi-family homes. Mm-hmm. So you're multi-generational. Let me correct that. Multi-generational homes where mom and dad are living with son and daughter who have their 4 kids. Right?
Well, and cities are changing codes to allow that to happen. Right? They're changing their zoning so that they can build multiple homes on standard family size lots. You know, quarter acre or even 10th acre type lots where you can build 2 dwellings. And we're seeing this, not necessarily here in Utah as much, but in talking to friends in Colorado and the Denver area, they're changing building codes, and that's one of the reasons why my friend moved from the area he was at, because they are building all around him in a high-end development to have multiple families in there, and it's part of the agenda. It's part of the Agenda 2030, right? But
oh yeah, totally.
But okay, so I got to correct something. It's 410 nationally. However, Utah, the average for the state is 509. Mm-hmm. The average for Salt Lake City is 630.
So yeah.
Now let's compare that. The average in Hawaii is 764. Mm-hmm. California is 708.
Dang.
It's not sustainable. You also have to look at what's the income, what availability of revenue do you have where you are, right? There's places where you can get super, super cheap, but like those places, to give you an example, West Virginia, the average, 118,000. Mississippi, 144,000. Nice. Oklahoma, 155.
Yeah, but what's your income level out there as well?
Right. The average income, let me see if I've got the income tab. Okay, median household income there, man, they're doing better than I am. 48 to 54. Right? And that's just my day job.
Dang.
So in these other places, even Hawaii, average household income is 83,000. How can you pay
you can't afford that.
A mortgage on a $764,000 home?
Well, because
you're only making 83,000.
Yeah, because both of them are working. Both family members, both parents are working, right? Or they're multi-generational and they have more than 2 people paying for the mortgage, right?
They have to do something.
It's crazy. And it's becoming more and more as a precautionary tale to everyone listening.
Here's another.
You have to build a community to prepare and to survive whatever's going to happen in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another aspect that I've been hearing a lot of lately is that there are people out there with still have money in banks, right? And we've been seeing what's been happening to the banks recently, with banks collapsing or being bought out, where they actually are about on the edge of failing and they need to be bought out. That's been happening quite a bit lately, and so people are scared to have a lot of money in banks, and they should be, right? They shouldn't have it in there. So there are a lot of people out there, including a friend of mine, who is looking for a place just to put cash, just to put money. And real estate's very safe. I think it's still, too expensive. But if you buy something that's tangible, you're going to have it regardless of what the value is, right? What happens to the value if it goes up or down? And of course, that turns my mind to gold and silver, right? Because that's tangible. You're always going to have it. If you're not buying an ETF, you're not buying, a contract, a futures contract for silver or gold, but actual physical gold and silver. And but that's still, it doesn't seem like that is not where people are turning yet. They're still turning to fairly conventional ways of investing, right? That have been proven, like real estate. I mean,
the modern conventional methods, right?
Yes, exactly. Modern
stock
conventional
market and housing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. Land
and even bonds. A lot of people buying bonds. Yeah.
What's funny is, like, have you guys seen that TikTok kind of started this, but the general strike on September 1st? They're saying everyone should not go to work.
Oh, I have heard about it. Yeah.
Don't buy gas, don't buy food, don't buy anything, and take all of your money out of the bank. And I don't know if that's everybody's saying that, but that's one of the big things that I've seen lately. And I'm like, why on earth would you tell everybody to take their money out of the bank on September 1st? That is what we call a run on the banks.
Yeah.
And we all know, maybe you don't, if you're listening to this, the banks don't have all the money that you own or that you've deposited on hand.
They don't.
Like,
so if you cause a bank run, your neighbor's not going to get their cash.
So if you go and try to get cash and your neighbor tries to go and get cash, I mean, just 3 people try to go get cash and the bank's going to be out of money for the day. Mm-hmm. Like, if everybody goes on strike and tries to do that, like, No. It won't work. What you need to be doing is taking out a little bit every month and diversifying it into your food storage, into gold and silver, into lead, and like
even cash on hand is important.
Cash on hand, yeah. It's redeemable until it's not. But like if we run on the banks, then guess what happens? Then we're forced into the CDBCs. The government's gonna be like, look, all the money's gone now, so here you go. Like that's the scenario I see.
They want to have a chaos situation like that where they can bring that stuff in. So just don't be causing it, people.
Yeah. Like if you want to strike, just don't go anywhere. Don't spend any money, but don't run on the banks, because that's just going to worsen our situation faster.
Exactly. But yeah, definitely have some urgency to have some cash on hand. I mean, it's obviously we could get in all kinds of scenarios.
Well, I personally don't. I would rather have either gold and silver, specifically probably silver, and even Goldbacks are going to be more valuable than actual fiat currency cash. So if you're going to hold dollar bills, be careful with those, because that's what's collapsing right now. And a lot of people are concerned. And we talked a little bit before the show about the BRICS nations and how the world reserve currency is the dollar right now. And that could change. And it's changed in the past. Like, who's to say that there's no world currency has been the world currency forever? They last usually, 100 years or so. And so we're in or actually less than that. Usually
it's about like 40 to 60 years.
Yeah, we're well overdue for a potential change. And, one of the things I was listening to a podcaster, an economic guy. He was actually, it was funny. He was on the stock exchange when he was, doing his podcast, but he said, a lot of people don't realize that the United States, the dollar, the economy of the United States actually surpassed the United Kingdom, who was the previous world currency. They surpassed economically in 1916-ish or so. And so the United States, America, the dollar was the larger economy, but the actual world reserve currency didn't change hands until the 40s, which was during the World War. And so he was sharing that, even if the BRICS nations do rise up, even if the BRICS nations do surpass our economy at some point in the near future, there's going to be a period of time before the dollar actually fully collapses and a new currency actually becomes the world reserve currency. Now, do I think things are happening faster than they normally are? In fact, the scriptures say that the times will speed up. And so it took 30 years the last time for a world currency to kind of actually fully develop. It might take 10 years or 15 years this time.
Or 5.
The idea is that 10 or 15 years is still a long time before it happens, but it's not that long before it happens. I was just talking to my buddy last night and about this kind of stuff and preparing and helping him kind of set up his plan to get prepared properly. And he's like, bro, do you realize we've been friends for 20 years? And I was like, 20 years? Dude, that flew by. Like I just didn't, my brain was like, wow, we've been friends for 20 years. And so 10 or 15 years is going to fly by again like that. So it's a long time, but it's not a long time. So just be aware and be ready. Yes, we need to be watching. Yes, we need to be aware what the BRICS nations are doing. Yes, we need to watch that stuff. And we need to start planning and preparing to move our assets into things that will survive a collapse of the dollar. And the only thing that's ever survived any kind of collapse of any world currency, gold and silver.
It's always the standalone assets reset. Like every time and I've talked about this book in the past, so if you've listened to prior episodes, I apologize, but like the creature from Jekyll Island, he goes in and like digs down and talks about like all the different times the world currency falls apart or a society's currency falls apart and how they go back to gold and silver. It's always there. So it's your best shot in the unknown, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with that. But, I also wanted to point out that there are so many other factors right now that could cause the dollar to completely collapse compared to, like you say, like the 40s after World War II when the U.S. became the world reserve currency. We've got debt, through the roof, right? I mean, that's everybody knows that. I mean,
credit card debt alone in America is $1 trillion.
Yeah. So there's so many more factors now, including war with Russia, China. I mean, so many things going on that one thing could pop and could change everything overnight. So yeah, and I think you listen to all the professional investors and such. Yeah, this process of weaning the dollar off all these countries is going to take a long time. Yeah, technically it probably is. But if something dramatic, something large happens, I think it could happen. I wouldn't say overnight, but the shock would be overnight, and then then you'd have to figure out how to cope for weeks, months, who knows, years until the new financial system is in place. Which I think that's why CBDCs are already ready to be launched, to where they can be something that would save air quotes the economy when something pops off.
Well, I think that's part of this whole alien invasion nonsense that's happening. I mean, how many people have said, if we had they've always, thrown out the question, if we had a visitor from another world and they said, take me to your leader, like which country, which one? And so the idea of having a world leader is so important, to have, like, this whole doctrine of having a world leader, a one world government, one guy to represent our world to the rest of the worlds that are out there, apparently. And I believe, by the way, there are other worlds out there. God's created all of it. And I would imagine that he's created other earths like ours. Anyways, the point is that this whole doctrine that they've created to get us to believe that we need to have this one world government and to be able to, address these alien invasion issues. Well, why wouldn't we have a one world currency? And why not make it a CBDC or something simple and easy like that? That's so convenient and so easy. It's just easy. It's so convenient. You guys, come on, just do it. Just come along, get along, go along to get along. Be careful. Be careful.
Absolutely. In reality, we don't need money. You can grow food. You can barter and you can trade.
Actually, you got to convince my wife of that first.
Well, it's the sad reality of brainwashing that we've all grown up in. And it's true. Oh, you have to have this new thing. Well, do I? I didn't have it before and I didn't need it then.
You have to have a 9-to-5 job, right?
I have to have a Cabbage Patch Kid. Oh, remember the run on those in the 80s? My goodness. They showed it was more exciting to watch that than the Black Friday sales and what goes on now. People fighting over flat screen TVs. I mean, people were fighting over a doll. And it was insane. And it's like, okay, don't need that. We survived. Don't need the flat screen. We survived. Like, but can you survive without eating? Can you survive without water? Can you survive without knowing the basics of medical care and first aid and taking care of yourself? Like, the economy's going nuts. But this is the time to not panic and just start learning everything you possibly can to be self-reliant.
And practicing as well. We were talking about Goldbacks is potentially just switching over. Trade all your dollars in. As you get your dollars, go and buy Goldbacks, right? So as your dollars lose value, the Goldbacks are increasing value, and then you just use those in your everyday transactions. It's a whole nother process, and you'd be educating people along the way, maybe even helping other vendors to decide to start accepting an alternate currency other than just the dollar, right? You go all over the world, and in general, in most places, they accept the local currency and they accept the dollar. I mean, that's changing a lot now. But
they would accept gold or silver or jewelry too.
Like, absolutely will.
The currency, that gold and silver is a world currency, in my opinion, because it's God's currency. It's God created this whole world. Like, it's the one thing that every nation, everywhere in the world, people recognize the value of gold and silver. Now, what it can buy in those cities and what they're willing to trade you for it is a different story, but it's definitely valuable and people know it.
Well, and it's funny because, like, you see that it's still in movies and in books and in people's stories. Oh, we were traveling in Egypt and da-da-da. And he's like, whatever, like some guy's biting the silver and the gold to see if it's real, the different tests people have for it. But the reality is we live in a very fragile situation, but it's not the end of the world.
Not yet.
Just what
there is no end. Not the way people think. Like,
right. I would say it's not the end of the. I would say it's not the end of the earth. Hopefully it's the end of the worldliness.
It's the end of the world system.
Yeah,
right.
We know it.
The end of the system as we know it. And really, like, if you really wanted brass tacks it all the way down, it's like we were promised that Jesus would come back. and we're waiting for him. But there's so many distractions going on all around the world, all around the money. We're so embedded with this idea that we have to live with money. We have to have these dollars or these wands or whatever. And that's the only way to do things. Why? Oh, because it's simpler to be able to fold it up and put it in your wallet and walk around. Or, oh, it's simpler to be able to have a digital scale that just keeps track of how much money is on your tab. And you can just push a button and transfer credits back and forth. It's like, have you guys seen, oh man, I can't even think of the name of the movie. Justin Timberlake's in it, and they've got all the
it's like the time thing where he has the timestamps on his forearm.
The little timestamp on your arm, and it's like that's how
I think
much
it's in time
you have.
That's
I think the movie's called In Time.
In Time, yeah, In Time. Thank you. But the currency is minutes, and you live to a certain age, and then you don't age any further, and then you run out of minutes. You die, and it's just like that's how absurd the system that they're trying to move us to is. Even though they can't determine how long we'll live, but like if they take away their digits, are we going to be able to continue to survive? Heck yeah, I don't need that. We don't.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine last night about the different things that we can do as communities. He said, if I could grow tomatoes and cabbage, and my neighbor could grow squash and cucumbers, and the guy down the road could grow watermelons and cantaloupes, then we can all just trade and we can all get along, and we wouldn't need a lot of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, bro, that's exactly what is the potential for a lot of stuff. And so, I'm actually reading a book right now about Stoicism, and it's it's Ryan Holiday, and I think it's the Daily Stoic quotes or whatever. And one of the quotes was something along the lines of how, if you want to become rich, learn to want less. And that's I was like, wow, this is really cool. I even had my wife read it, and I was like, hey, the reason why we maybe feel poor or feel like we're not there is because we always want more. We want this, we want that. We see what the neighbor has. We want that. We want all these things. Well, what if all you wanted was to just have sustainability? What if all you wanted was to be self-reliant and to have a garden? And then no matter what, you wouldn't be tempted by all this other stuff because you have what you want. And when you have what you want and it's sustainable, you're rich.
Yep. Yeah, kind of like we talked about one of our last programs is just want to be free, right?
Yeah.
And do everything you have to in order to be free, which is to be out of debt, be out of the system. Realistically, to be truly free, you got to be out of the system, and a system requires dollars. It requires currency. I'm not going to say money. It doesn't require money because only gold and silver are money. If there's only one thing you learn from this short segment is that gold and silver are money. Everything else is credit,
or debt.
Our bank even credit in the way of debt.
They're debt notes.
Exactly. That's what the U.S. dollar is. It's a debt note. It represents debt. It doesn't represent anything of value. It's the opposite. It represents debt, which is mind-blowing if you think about what that really is.
You used to be able to take it, and it was a exchange note for an actual gold or silver piece.
Yeah.
And now this is an IOU. Well, when can I get paid on it? I'll let you know.
It's not even an IOU. It's an IOU to the Federal Reserve, right?
Right. It's
with interest. With interest that doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
And the Federal Reserve Federal Reserve too it needs to go down. And that's what, going back to your book about the Creature of Jekyll Island, Federal Reserve was created as a corporation by the banker barons to control the world, or at least
not as part of the United States.
It's not. It says federal, but that's just their way of faking people out. It's a fully separate and sole corporation. Now, here's the problem: is that the United States Congress, if you read the Constitution, the Congress is only allowed to print certain things and make coins and certain things like that. Well, the Federal Reserve came in as a workaround, if you will. They created the Federal Reserve. Now we can create these notes. Now we can create this debt notes, and the Congress is now disempowered to actually create real money and real currency for us, because they've relegated that over to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is taking advantage of it, and then they lend out. And that's why and how we're getting a lot of these countries that are under the banking system of the world, the monetary fund and the global banking system. That's really what really runs the world, if you will.
Yeah, well, look what happened to JFK when he tried to create a currency backed by silver, right?
Oh yeah, you got, and then who was it too? It was like Hassan. It was not Osama bin Laden. It was the guy before him, Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was like, I'm going to create a currency with gold and silver, and he was taken out.
He was taken out. Yep.
Yeah. So it's this. There is a conspiracy. There is a conspiracy about it. I'll leave it to you because the time we have is short. But I'll leave it to you to go down that rabbit hole. But the idea here is to be prepared and be ready and make sure that you have. Honestly, if you have dollar bills sitting in the bank doing nothing, earning 0.1%, hit me up and I'll tell you where to put a better savings account. But buy food, even buy some gear. If you're going to have, like, one of the reasons why I was able to sell my wife on having generators was, look, if I'm going to have several $1,000s sitting in a savings account for emergencies, wouldn't I? And an emergency hits, I can't get my money, but I can use my gear to survive the emergency. So my emergency fund is the gear that I have that will get me through emergencies.
Exactly. So here's how the cash.
Here's how you need to look at prepping. In the banking side of things, everyone talks about having an emergency fund for when calamity strikes. Oh no, we need to have a repair on the car. We need to have right. But all the prepping gear and food and guns and gold and silver, it's called emergency fund. There's no D at the end. It's just emergency fund. Because when you start learning this stuff and playing with it and using it, you're like, wow, it's a much simpler and enjoyable way of life.
It's a lifestyle. It's
your time.
Starts out as a hobby.
The emergency, so I can have some, so I can try this out.
Yeah, starts as a hobby, but turns into a lifestyle. I mean, and it seems like the progression for most preppers, or many preppers, just like myself, is to go from prepper to a homesteader, right? To actually want to get out of the city, grow your own food, and go back to the way it used to be, right? The way it was. Like I always say, look to the past to prepare for the future. And I think as one of my last comments, I'll say, there's a saying that's misused, that the money is the root of all evil. It's not that. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. Yeah, and if your eyes are open and you're seeing what's going on in the banking system, the governments, everything, it's all because of, and I'm not even going to say money, all because of currency, because they don't have any money. They don't have money. They have currency. They have debt. They have power and control is what they have with the love of money. So,
amen.
Well, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being part of the show. We're going to close out with one request. We are going to be hosting an event here on a Thursday night at 6 o'clock. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we've been doing to switch our spending to more American-made, American manufacturing, and American products and services. We've partnered with a company that has over 450 around their products and services that are all built high quality, good, solid companies. If you're tired of putting your money, we've been talking about money all day, this whole show. If you're tired of giving your money to woke companies that hate your guts, as a conservative, as a prepper, then it's time for you to make a switch to the parallel economy and to really get yourself founded and established with a company that manufactures products that you're already using so that you can switch over to those. So if you go to preppertalkproject.com and register for the event, we're going to spend a few minutes sharing with you what we're doing and how we're switching some of the things that we're buying away from those woke companies that hate our guts to American-made, American manufacturing. So go to preppertalkproject.com and fill that out and register for that. It'll be a great opportunity to meet us and talk to us, and we'll be able to share with you what we're doing. So without that, you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. Please stay ready-minded. Please keep your head on a swivel, and let's build self-reliance. Take care, guys.
See you next week.